Hi all, welcome to the post session of this SAP Basis training. And we talk more on this transport systems. TMS configurations in a particular SAP system. How do we do the transports and how the delivery follows from the dev to the test systems, dev test to production. Okay. So before we, it's a disclaimer, and then we have this agenda. So we are going to talk about the concept of transports, import process, and then the non-ABAP transports in a brief way. Okay. Before we get into this agenda, I would like to do a quick recap of what we have discussed. Okay. And also, we will try to do the assessment before we get into this particular agenda. So, which you may do as a basis consultant day in and day out. So, based on your customer projects, first, let's say if you are in an SAP, within SAP is your client. So there, this auto transport process might have been automated completely. But if you are working in a client projects, BP or any other client projects, there definitely you have to work on this transports. Yeah, importing of the transports and changes, you have to take it to the production. Okay, so it's a very, very important topic. So at times you may stuck in this process. So understanding the basics is very important. Okay, and also importing and taking these changes to the production is not so difficult. Okay, most of the times it's been tested, and if it gives an error, so you can always reach out to the developers. That is fine. That part is clear. But what is important is the basics of how do you configure this in a particular system. Let's say if I give you the development system, okay, I'm setting the context, guys. Don't think that I'm giving too much theory. Setting the context in a practical world. Suppose if I ask you as a customer, or if there is a new implementation, right? They're setting up their development, test, and production landscape. Okay. Hey, can you please configure my STMS? Right? So what do you do? What are the questions you may have to ask or the clarify with the customer or yourself? How do you design that TMS configuration for that particular landscape? Okay. So what are the things you have to consider to set up such a thing? Okay. All those questions will be clarified in this session when we walk through this thing. Okay. So it's very important, this thing. And I will give you, this theory and understanding this, you get it anywhere. But the real time where you have to check when there is a problem. Okay. What you have to, the sense or the common sense where by looking at the error, what exactly on what location you may have to check. That common sense you will build after completing this particular module. Okay. Especially in terms of the TMS configuration. So sometimes people call it as a STMS configuration or the TMS configuration. So all of them are same, but just stick to this. Okay. So let me present my screen. So present a view. Okay. So there are some I'm going with the presenter view today. So the reason is there are some important terminologies, okay, in this particular definitions kind of thing, which will help you. It is important for you to know exact definition of those words or these things, so that you will talk or whenever you are explaining in your client meetings or somewhere, use those terms in a proper way. Okay. So let's start with the transport system. Okay. The first thing, whenever you are doing this transport, right? So you see this slide. As I said, majority of the customers will have this dev, QAS, and prod. QAS is nothing but quality assurance. And some people, I don't know if you have heard RTE system. Some will call as a just test system. Some will call as an RTE. RTE means regression testing. So it is the customer's definition. So based on, if it is more of like a too much testing, they do RTE. Some will use a QAS. Okay. So the naming convention for the QAS system will vary based on the customer. Okay. It's up to them how they define, but the whole purpose is for the testing only. So this middle one. Okay. So the first one is the development and prod. So this is the landscape path. Many of the customers will follow 3 system landscape. This is. So if I tell you 5 system landscape, On top of this dev, there is a sandbox. Okay, here sandbox will be there. And sandbox, development, QAS or RTE, or the fourth one, pre-production. Before going to the prod, they will have one more thing, pre-production. So today, if time permits, I will show you one 5-system landscape, the STMS configuration in one of the projects which I am working. So, I mean, that will give you a better picture. Okay. So since we are just taking a 3-system landscape, so transport directory. So what is this transport directory? Okay. So what all things it contains? For example, if you are working on any project or in your customer thing, right? In your customer project now, you have these systems. So what you do is you go and check this directory, trans directory. So then you will get a feel of what I have explained today, and this transport concept will be completely clear for you. 100% you will understand how your client or your project has configured this particular thing. So if you take the trans directory, so you will have a trans directory which is common for all these 3 systems: dev, QAS, and production. Okay. So all of them have the same trans directory. You log into the dev system and see USR SAP trans, and then QAS USR SAP trans, production USR SAP trans. You check the directory. So all of the 3 they have common directory, and in most of the cases it is a common mount. Okay. So NFS or the export of the block device or whatever is it, that directory will be common for all these 3 systems. Okay, so that you can make a note of these things, guys. What to be checked? I mean, so one thing in the sandbox system, what I'm going to provide, you can check there. But anyway, it's a single system one. But it is also important for you to understand the projects where you are working. What is the configuration they have done over there? Okay, just check it out. So when I said this trans directory is common, right? So as a basis consultant, if somebody asks you to configure this TMS configuration in a particular landscape, so your first thing should be what? Network consideration, right? What is the network consideration? So do all 3 systems are in the same network. So then only you will be able to mount the directory. I mean the common mount or NFS. So that part has to be clear for you. So you have to place a request for this network team or server management team to configure a common trans directory, but the requirement has to go from you. Okay, clear? So, and how do you define the sizing of this trans directory? How do you define what size do I have to do? That thing will be depends on, you have to check with the customer, hey, how frequently the transports you generate the transport. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Or some customers will do weekly basis also. Okay, how many transports and what will be the expected size? This analysis you have to do with the functional consultants, functional or the ABAPers. So if you generally take a 3-system landscape, 50 to 100 GB is more than sufficient. Again, if this trans also full, then it also leads to a system hung situation, or it won't lead to any further imports to happen. So you don't want to get into that situation, right? So discuss with them. They say that, hey, every week I do 10 transports and each of them of size of 10 MB or 20 MB. Then you calculate accordingly. And most of the customers, so the best suggestion which you, as a basis consultant, you can give is ask them to use the NFS. Okay. I mean, network file system. So which means that can be extended whenever you need. Okay, easily. Suppose 50 GB and you already exceeded 40 GB, and then you add the 10 GB extra for that. Okay. So that way you have to first check with the trans, and then you put them in the mount it on all the 3 systems, dev, QAS and prod system, and ensure that you have the right amount of space defined for that. And you also keep increasing it as and when it is required. That is your regular task. Okay. So how do you know that where is my trans directory path? Okay, so I'm just telling you that USR SAP trans. In most of the cases, you use it, but some customers may use differently. So there is a profile parameter which we will check it today, which is called dir_trans. So if you go to the default profile, I mean profile directory that we will see. So just check for the parameter dir_trans. That will have the default path, which is this USR trans, and Windows ignore it. So very less number of systems these days on Windows, and it's waste of time you focusing on this Windows. So whenever you have working on in Windows, just you concepts are same. It's just that the way you operate is different. I mean, instead of this Linux, this thing, but the concepts are same. So there it is like a SAP MNT trans, but irrespective of your operating system and stuff, always check for the dir underscore trans. So that you can also check in your landscapes. Just go to the RJ11 or RJ12. So just check for this parameter in the display mode, dir underscore trans, what has been defined. Then you will understand what is the trans directory has been defined over there. Okay. So now, what does this trans directory contains? So now we will focus more on this black, this one, highlighted ones. So remaining things also important, but I will give a brief thing about them. So what is this bin directory? What is this buffer? What is this data? What is this co-files? So at least you need to understand data and co-files part very clearly. And then bin, it's a simple. Bin is nothing but in any way, in server management or anywhere. Bin is kind of more like configuration related, or the configuration or the executables or the runtime related things or the envs related stuff will be in the bin directory. So just remember like this, each TP, like we have a default profile and then the instance profiles, right? I mean, for AAS1 or AS2 additional application servers, each application server has its own instance profile. Okay, like that, transport also has a profile. Okay, so that PFL that we will see in the system, TP, that naming convention is TP underscore domain name dot PFL. Okay, so this profile will exist on the particular thing. So in this profile, what you can see, like any other instance profile, you see the parameters. Okay, here also you see certain things like timeouts or import related parameters. What is my transport route? What is my this thing? So that configuration PFL will contain those details. So we can open one PFL file and we will see today. Okay, so then buffer. So what is this buffer? So here you see this buffer directory. So buffer is for each system. So it contains the, suppose there are transports which lies in the queue, which are ready to be imported. Okay, which you have not imported, but you have just added them in the queue, and then which are ready to be imported. So those transports will be available in the buffer. So the name itself says buffer, which is like the transports which contains the ready to be imported. So data files. Okay, so data. So this is the important thing. Sometimes, okay, let me explain the definition, and then we will get into when it is important to data and co-files thing. Data part of the exported transport requests. Okay, for example, you have done some change in the development system. Okay, so those changes will be where they have been tracked. Obviously, the changes will go and sit in the database of the development system, right? So when you export that as a transport, okay, so those database changes will be calculated or created in a particular data file. Okay, so you can go and check in your landscape also in the data directory. You find a lot of files with R. It starts with R. Okay, that's the naming convention for all the data files. It's a standard naming convention. So at the end of this PPT, we have one slide where I'm going to show you this R and data files and co-files, how they look. So R stands for the data file. It's very important. R files, all of them. So the data file contains the actual change or the functionality which you have introduced in that particular, or the customizing which you have done in the development system. Okay, and then co-files. So what is this co-files? So this contains the transport request information. You know, what kind of transport type it is. You know, what are the object classes? What are the required import steps? What it has to do? What are the exit codes it has to generate once the import? It's more like an information, or what we call like a structure kind of thing. Okay, this is my transport, and these are the object classes in the. It's a definition of that particular thing, a catalog or whatever is it. You call it as a catalog kind of thing. Definition of those things. Okay, so that it's just a definition, and these co-files starts with the word letter K, capital K. Okay, you can check that. So co-files are very small size. I mean, it's in KBs. But the data files, sometimes they are of size 5 MB too. I have seen the biggest transport is 1 GB size. That's a huge transport. But in general, your transport request definitely not that much of size. Okay, so it is strongly recommended to have the customizing or these things in chunks or a sequence of transports. So sometimes you may get a request to do follow the exact sequence, 10 transports or 15 transports, like that. So that time it is very important you follow the sequence, or else you it will lead to a lot of inconsistencies and it starts throwing the dumps in the system. Okay. Now, for example, if a customer now the next question comes to you. Okay, as a basis guy, uh, transport directory setup, you understood what are the two things to be done. Number one, uh, first thing you have to consider is the three systems should have access to this transport network requirements, and then mount this transport directory in all three. Okay. Number two, okay, how do you do the HTML configuration and then it will read it. Sometimes you may get a request, right? So the transport are not developed in this particular development system. Okay, so they have developed in some other projects or some other development system within the company. Okay, how do you get those transports to this particular landscape? Okay, so that times what do they do? So that time they'll say that, hey, I have a system I have developed in this particular development system. I want all these development to go to this particular landscape, whatever we see here. How do you do that? So as a basis consultant, they ask you to do that. So what do you do? I mean, what do you ask for, first of all? Anybody knows? How do you get the development? So in this landscape, it's fine. If you develop in a development system, you track them in a transport request and then move it to QAS and then move it to the production. So now the question is, the developers do not want to develop here. They already developed already. So they don't want to repeat the same work again. Okay. So somewhere, some other development system, they already developed and they ask you as a basis consultant, hey, I want all these changes to go to this particular landscape. Okay. So first of thing is you have to bring them to this particular development system, right? So how do you bring them? So bring them to this development and then you import to QAS and production. So anybody knows? Any clue?
With the data file or co-file and place it in the existing trans directory.
Exactly. Exactly. That is where I am coming. That is where it is important to understand. So the first thing is you ask them, hey, how many transports are there? Okay. So is it 10, 20, 30, 40? So sometimes it is a huge thing, right? I mean, if it is a huge development, if you take SAP as an example, SAP's development is a huge, within SAP. So because it's a development organization, it's a production company. So they develop, their core is development. For them, there is no production systems. Okay. For end users or the customers outside, production is the most critical one. For within SAP, development is the most critical one because they do development. So yes, that is one thing. Okay, if it is a 2 transports or 3 transports, what you can do is you can simply get those, ask them for a data file and co-file. You can copy this to the development systems data and co-files directory. So this is where you have to place the R files in data directory and co-files in the co-files directory, or else it gives an error. That's where you have to copy properly to the right directory. Okay, that is one thing. Suppose if it is a huge, so some 10,000, 20,000 transports. So you think that it is not possible to do that. So that approach is different. It's like a client copy thing. So you ask them that, hey, you do one thing, you put all of them in one particular client in your development system. Okay. From that client in this particular dev system, you create one more client here. Okay. So create one more client and do a remote client copy. Then you get all the customizing, whatever they have done here. So, and then you ask them to verify in this development system, your coding and everything. Once this is ready, then you can export them as workbenches or the cross-client customizing transports, and then you import to the QS and production. That is the secondary approach. Let's keep it aside. So when we have this client copy and other stuff, so I will get to that thing. That is another approach. I mean, when you have thousands of transports like SAP, where the development is the core and too many things, so that's when you can copy the You can do a remote client copy, and then you can do that tweaking here in the development system. But in general, in the production thing, you just have to copy the data file and co-file and put them in the right directory. Okay. So then another thing, a log, the grade one also, I'll give a brief thing. So this log directory is something name itself says. So whenever you see some issues with the import or some errors in the configuration, you always go to this log directory and look for the files so you get some clue what is the problem. So sometimes the RFC connection might not be working, and sometimes authorization is missing for this data and co-files. Sometimes it says co-files missing. So it can lead to the, this all has to be with the SID ADM password. Sometimes it misses the authorization, right? Authorizations for when you copy the files. Okay, that kind of errors it will throw in the log directory. Temp is nothing. Temporary data and log files. I mean, during the import, whatever the logs or the temporary files it generates, it keeps in the temp. So generally, we don't touch this temp directory, and as a basis consultant, you don't have to check this one. So EPS. Okay, EPS is the important directory. So anyone knows this directory? So this is important when you are doing the support package upgrades. Okay. So for example, EHP1 to EHP2 or EHP, or you are upgrading from SP update of this basis component or SAP APPL or these components, one patch to the another patches. So you always have to keep those patches in EPS directory. It's a download directory. Okay. So SAP support packages, you always keep it over here. That is in an advanced level when you are doing these patches. Okay. So SAP names, just for namesake, information belong to the as per SAP EPS. So this is also comes when during the patching. Okay, what are the download packages you have downloaded, and those details will be captured in this SAP names. So the most important directories are the data and co-files. So which is in during the runtime or the importing. And bin is important if you want to look into the configuration of how your profiles defined and stuff. You can check that. Okay, so transport sequence.
When you decompress this one SR files, so that when you patch upgrade, right, wherever you do that, the target will be like after decompress one, it will come into this EPS folder only, right? If you have a package.
No. So generally, it may or it may not come, but I would strongly recommend always to you is first you download the car files, car or SAR files, okay, in the EPS directory. Okay, so you bring them. So then you do a SAP car minus XVF, right? Uncompress. You are doing an uncompress, and there itself. So that is why it will in the present working directory is the EPS, and it will uncur over there. You got it. So suppose in the SAP car command itself, if you have mentioned that, okay, define the target directory, right? SAP car minus XVF file name, and then you give the target directory. I mean, USR, SAP, or whatever, it will go and uncur there. You understand? So, but if you download in the EPS directory only, and if you don't mention anything SAP car minus XVF and then the file name, then it will uncur there only because it's the present working directory. Clear?
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks. No problem. So now again, transport sequence. So, I mean, there are two things. Logically, anybody can explain with the whatever we discussed. Hey, development, you do it, and then this is the logical. So development to QAS, and then QAS to the production. Okay, that is fine. So, but yes, you have a transport directory common for all these three systems: Dev 1, QAS, and production. So, what exactly physically how the transport sequence follows? Okay, when a developer customizations, once he changes, he tracked under a transport, how does it goes to the QAS? Okay, that is important. So this is the sequence: physical objects, three system landscape, transport in the following three steps. Okay, so all the objects in a transport that are to be released or exported by being of database. Okay, for example, this is a development system. Okay, so they have to be exported, and then they have to copy it to the database. right? Whatever the changes you do, they will be tracked, in any system. Once you do the changes, then that has to be saved in the database. Okay?
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features? Bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So, whenever you release the transport in a dev system, release, okay, or when exactly the transport creates the data file and co-files. So it's not when you capture the changes in a transport. Okay, so you develop something in the development system, you have tracked them under the transport request, those changes are written to the database for sure. Whenever you say that I am good, this transport is perfect, and then when you release it, then it starts creating a data file and co-file. Where does it create? In the transport directory. Okay, data file and co-file will be created in the transport directory, in the data directory and co-files directory. Okay, that happens only when you release the transport. Okay, sometimes the customer, one of the issues. So the developers will say that, hey, please go and import this transport in the test system. Okay, but you don't see the moment you try to import it, you don't find the transport at all. The reason is it doesn't have the data file and co-file in the transport reception. What could be the reason? That guy has not released the transport. Simple. So then you have to tell him that, boss, first you release the transport. Okay, you release the transport, it's his ownership, and if he is confident, and there are also some approval processes. There are authorizations defined who can approve the transport. Development lead, both mostly. So the development project has a developer architect or a chief developer. So who will approve the transport, verifying the changes, whatever it has done? Because if anybody releases the transport, then that causes problem, right? So that guy has to review whether that particular developer has followed these development guidelines or the SAP's recommendations, and they have tools also to do that. Okay, so those things anyway not part of you, but you just have a glimpse of what exactly they do. Those guys, developers. So so they approve it, and then the data and co-files created to the transport directory. So now, if you want to import to the QAS, yes, it's a shared directory. You can add that transport in the QAS system. In STMS, and add it to the queue, and then you just click on the import, and then it gets imported. So what happens when you import it? So transport. Yeah, I'll ask you the next question. Let me complete this. What happens when you import? You understand in a physically. Okay, import means where does it go and write the changes? It has to write it in the database, right? So I'm stressing on the part database, guys. There is one important thing you have to understand after this. So it go and writes in the database the change, whatever it has happened. So that is what happens exactly physically when you import the transport. So, and then fine. So your testing is done. So what the testers will do? They will test it in the test system. Okay, perfect. Everything is good. Then once the testing team approves the transport, they will ask you on a predefined timelines to import it in the production system. Again, when you import into the production, it will write the changes to the database. So I will ask you a question now. Is the transport is reversible? So once you import a transport, can you revert the change? Anybody? So you got my question? Suppose if you have imported
we
a
can
transport.
revert the change, but we can overwrite it.
Yes. That's why I'm stressing on the part database. Okay, transport is one of the most powerful thing. It can spoil your entire system. Okay, so once you import a transport, there is no way going back. Okay, the override is nothing but, I don't know who has answered it. Override is nothing but they will send the correction. Okay, so they will send because when you import, the change is going to be written to the database. Okay, once it is written to the database, you have to manually go there and delete that entry or something. Then it will lead to complete inconsistency. There's no way you can revert it. Okay, So the most important part is transport is not reversible once it is written to the database. So they can correct the code. I mean, they have to do like and manually they have to correct it, and they can send the fix in the next transport. Okay. So whatever it has messed up, so they can send a next transport and then they correct it. That's it. But there is no way that once you import it and you take it back. Okay. And as a basis consultant, you may face severe cases, in at least in quality. So suppose they give you some 20 transports to be imported into the test system. Okay. After import, then there is a severe scenario that a lot of inconsistencies. When I say inconsistencies, how do you know that there are inconsistencies? Anybody? How do you know that system is inconsistent?
Maybe the errors we get during the transport because of that.
No. So that's fine. That you will have the error. So when I say system is completely messed up after importing transport, how do you get to know that that has been messed up? Okay. Well, so once you import the transport, so what is the transport? These guys have done some changes, right? To the correct code. Okay, custom code or the modifications, or they've changed the table structure or whatever is it. What is going? So they changed the SAP's code. So what is going to happen when I say inconsistencies in the system? System starts throwing dumps. I mean ST22. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of the transaction code. We will check in the troubleshooting analysis, but have this context. When I say system is completely tossed up, so ST22, it keeps throwing errors like anything, dumps. Those are the above dumps. So then it says DBSQL error, it says syntax error, it says so many things. Okay. So which are all related to the corrections. We can check it in the system later point in time, but when your system is completely led to inconsistent, that is what I mean. So which means your system is not functioning as expected because you have changed the structure of the code, or you have changed the ABAP code, and these transports are not proper. Okay. So I've seen one scenario. So when I've imported around 150 transport, the system led to a completely inconsistent. I mean, it is unusable. It started throwing dumps no matter whatever you execute, and the jobs failing, SM21 errors, so many things. So then obviously you are the doctor, I said, right? They will ask you to do something. What do you do in such case? So yes, you have imported a 100 transport to your system. System has led to the completely inconsistent state. What do you do after that? How do you fix it? Yes, basis guy has to fix it here. Okay, and only basis guy can do, because developers cannot develop those many corrections, 100, 200 corrections, and send it to them. So it means they realize that okay, test system has completely gone. So now we have to do something to bring it back. So the most basic thing, backup restore. Okay, so that is why most important thing, whenever you are importing something, you always have to check for the latest backup. Okay, so these are all the practical scenarios, guys. So they look too much theoretical, but you try to understand these scenarios. They're very, very important. Theory, I can explain you so much, but these cases, how do you approach with common sense is the most important thing. So whenever somebody asks you to import some transport, right? So the first thing as a basis consultant, what you have to do is, that once you import this change is going to hit the database, and that it will spoil the database. So, I mean, it could be that they have tested everything, but as a basis guy, you have to see whether do I have my latest backup in the system, right? So do I have my latest logs available to do a point in time recovery in case if the never underestimate a transport. One single transport can spoil your entire system. Okay. So one single transport, suppose that guy by mistake has put, instead of defining a field name or the column name, if you put a star, right? You don't know that command, what he has incorporated. By mistake, if he has put a star, some table and then star thing, you can't read that 10 pages of code also in that file, in the transport file. You don't understand. So by mistake, somewhere, if that guy put a star over there by typo or something, it will delete the entire particular table's column, right? So that's it. System leads to inconsistent. So then you have only one option, basis guy. Please restore the test system, right? Test system back to the previous latest backup, and then you ensure that you do a point in time recovery. So there is an option. So, okay, so and so time I have imported this transport exactly to that time, you can restore it. That we will discuss how do you do this backup restore and all, but you know this. Okay. So transport never, that's why I'm stressing so much on these practical cases. So in most of the cases, systems are screwed because of the transports only. Okay. Wrong transports, or sometimes by mistake, I will talk to you, transport routes and then the transport layers. By mistake, they divert the traffic from one direction to the another direction, and then the accident happens. So that system will go for a toss. Then they have to do a restore and recovery. Okay. So just try to understand. So here, this is the transport sequence. So physical, dev, QAS, and then production is the logical sequence. What exactly happens is every time when you export in development system, what happens? It will copy the changes from your development database to the data file and co-file, and it creates them in the transport directory. When you import in QAS, it will pick the data file and co-file from the QAS transport directory because it is common, and then it imports. When I said import, actually what it is doing, it is writing it to the database. So same thing happens in the production. Okay, this is important to understand, guys. So what exactly happened when you import it or export it? Okay, good. So that's the sequence. Good. So now we are coming. Yeah, sorry. Please go ahead.
Is this the backup catalog which we are supposed to check on the daily basis that in the DB02 system, that is for the transports only?
Not only for transports, for many, because transports you don't do regularly, right? So DB02, so there are various reasons. Okay. So DB02 backups, you check the backups, right? Daily monitoring. Okay. Whether there is a latest backup is there or not every day. But again, that is a frequency also defined by the customer based on the thing. If it is a development system, they say, alternative days also fine for backup, or weekly ones also fine, because it's cost saving. Because backup, again, the unit is space and thing. If it is a quality system, weekly twice or daily. Some people will define daily also. For production, daily for sure, there should be a daily backup, successful backup for production. Okay. So this is one of the reasons, because you don't import the transport in a day in and day out, but you will import weekly once or twice to the quality. So this backup can be used in multiple scenarios. For example, somebody went to the database and deleted something as a basis guy who has the DB access. That time also there is only one option. If you delete a table, you have to restore the system, right? For example, if there is a hardware failure, okay, so then database doesn't know the status of it and it has led to an inconsistent state. Okay, that time also you may have to restore and recover. Okay, and this changes also. For example, in development also they recommend to have you daily backup, because suppose if that developer is working today on a development and he knows that okay something is went bad, then he has to revert to the previous day backup. So that is why backups are mainly for the restoring the system back to the normal state, whatever is the possible scenario. What I'm trying to say is, but for the transport, when you are doing, it is important for you to check if there is a backup. So sometimes what happens is backups won't run because of network issues or because of the backup configuration or so on. So reasons there are, we do see, right? Sometimes we don't see backups are not running for 2 days or 3 days. So, but when you are doing the transport, ensure that there is a backup for sure. Okay, that's what I mean to say. You got it? You got the question, answer? Did I answer my question?
Yeah.
So, I mean, backups, forget about whether they are configuring it and for what purpose. For multiple purposes, backups are defined to restore and recover the systems. But when you are doing a transport, please ensure that there is a backup. So if you don't have a backup, you better wait. Okay. You tell the developers that, hey guys, I don't have a backup and there is a problem and I'm working with so-and-so backup team and I have raised a ticket. It is the same case during the upgrades also. Okay. And another use case is, why do you need a backup, successful backup? During upgrades, right? When you are doing an SP patching. So when you are doing a support package or node implementation also, it is very important. Yeah, node implementation can be reverted. There is an option to de-implement, but transport, there is no option. But whenever you are doing such activities, it is always recommended to have a latest backup. Okay, as a basis guy, that is your core, this thing. What is your task is to bring back this system to the state where, anybody can spoil the system, functional guy or the developer or tester or whoever it is. But as a basis guy, you always have to, this is one of the roles and responsibility, your roles and responsibility as an admin or as a consultant or as an architect when you grow, right, as an SME. So what is your role? Troubleshooting is fine, one aspect, and safeguarding the system is your most important task as well. Safeguarding the system is in this kind of unexpected things. So you always have to ensure, no matter what these guys do, what these guys do in the system, you always design the landscape in such a way that you can bring back to this particular moment. For example, if that guy say that my system has gone into a toss after so and so time, so please, you have to restore or recover it. So as a basis guy, you have to you should have already defined an architecture that there is a possibility that you could restore to that particular point in time. Okay, that will be like a backup and restore configurations. We will talk in an advanced thing. Okay, how do you configure that? What are the scenarios? How do you define such an architecture? But it is your roles and responsibility. Okay, clear? So next, transport system. So there are a few terminologies which you will come across when you are working on this TMS or the transport configuration. So number one is the transport domain, and then you hear about the transport group, and then transport domain controller. So the system which I have provided also, when we log into the system, it will tell you that it is a domain controller and what exactly is it. Okay, so good. So a transport domain. So here, if you see in this screen, let me explain you this screenshot, this screen. Okay, so I have this transport domain 1. Okay, and in this I have a transport directory. You see the term transport group, and then there is a thing called TDC, sorry, which is transport domain controller. So these are the three important things which you have to understand. Okay, so TDC, let's say dev or test or production, and then you have transport domain 2. Again, here you have a one transport directory, and then TDC, and then you have a transport group 2, and then transport directory 2. Okay, so the transport domain is nothing but it contains all the systems, SAP systems, that you plan to manage centrally. Okay, from this particular transport domain, you can manage those systems. For example, you have dev, test, and quality. You can manage from the domain. And if you have other region systems, 3 more systems of the same landscape, but they're in a different trans directory or a different thing. Okay, they may have a different trans directory. Those also can be controlled from the transport domain. Okay, see, you take the transport domain 2 example. Here this explain. I have the here transport group 1, transport group 2, or the transport DIR 1, transport. So transport group is nothing but the ones which are sharing the same transport directory. Simple, if I tell you. So all the systems, whoever are sharing the same transport directory or belongs to one transport group. So here you see the transport DIR 1, and then you have transport group 1, transport directory 2, transport. So why I am giving this domain 2 example is, for example, take an example of Asian Paints or whatever company, one customer. So he has systems across the regions. Okay, few systems are in APJ, which is our region. I mean Asia, Pacific, Japan. Few systems are in Europe. Few systems are in America. Okay, but they all belongs to the same landscape. So they all have each one has the different transport directories. Why? I'll tell you the reason. So APJ, they have a data center in Singapore. Okay. AMS or America, they have a data center in America. Europe, they have data center in Germany. Okay. So, and it is not recommended or it is not ideal to create a direct, network. So what I told, when you are configuring the first requirement is network, right? You should have a common trans directory. Let's say you have three systems in each region: dev, test, and production. Dev, test, production in Germany. Dev, test, production in wherever America. All 6 are belongs to all 9 systems are belongs to the same landscape, but catering to the different region different region factories or customers. Okay. So now the question is, one configuration you can do is you create one transport directory here. So the first one, the transport directory, and then you define all of them 9 systems you connect to this transport directory. Okay. But what would be the prerequisite? You need to have a common trans directory network allowed. So this trans NFS or whatever is it to allow in between this. So one data center in Singapore and one in Europe and one in is, so your latency will be stored. I mean, your latency, very bad latency. Latency in the sense, response times will be higher to copy or to do that thing. And moreover, it is not recommendable. It's a security breach. Okay, from one data center to the another data center, it is not recommended to open connections. I mean, share the files or this thing. That is bad. And moreover, if your trans directory, that NFS file has gone, then your entire 9 systems are going for a toss, right? So to avoid that, so that is when this transport group configuration comes into picture, or the transport directory, different transport directories comes into picture. So what they will do is simply, okay, I have 3 systems in my APJ. You define a trans directory over here, dir1. So okay, APJ, trans APJ, you define one. And then Europe, trans Europe, you define. Trans AMS, all 6 are fine. So each development system, you ensure that there is a path for these transports to move over there. Via application or RFC connection, whatever it is, you can define such things. So you get them here, and then you sync all these 3 development systems, and then you do the transports from those respective trans directories. Okay, that is the best thing. So that is why you have this transport group or the transport directory, this thing, to cater such big landscapes where you have regional wise data centers and where you have regional wise landscapes which are catering to their respective regions. Okay, so that is where you have to understand this thing, but it is very rare. I mean, only I've seen such things in an Nestle, which is a huge thing. They have this regional wise thing, and then I've seen it in Unilever. So such kind of complicated transport things. Okay, but in general, this 3 system landscape and then the trans directory is the mostly you see it in your landscapes. Okay, so initialization of the TMS. Okay, so you see this triangle. First, you create a transport domain with the transport domain controller, define systems of the transport domain. So these are the 3 things when you start with the TMS. Okay, STMS, the moment, if suppose initially, for example, you built a development system and first time you executed the transport STMS configuration, it asks. So what it will do first? So it will create the transport domain. Okay, what is the domain which I have to do? And then it creates the domain controller. It will ask you, okay, is this system is a domain controller? You will define it as a domain controller. So what are the systems? What is my development system? What is your test system? What is your production system? That you have to define here. And then it will define the transport routes. Okay, what is my delivery route? What is my consolidation route? I will tell you what is the consolidation route and delivery route. And then QA procedure configuration, which means who has to approve. Okay, I told you, right? So not all people will have authorization to approve. So only the validated functional. So quality assurance approval means it's the developer releasing the transport. Development architects has the authorization. They are the guys who are experts and they will validate for their entire team's development and release it. But in QA also, you have a functional lead who will validate the testing lead, who will validate all the changes implemented in the system, and then he will approve it for the production. Okay. So these are the 3 main important things when you are configuring the STMS configuration. Okay. So good. Now the important question, where do you configure this domain controller or this transport group or transport domain? What are the requirements? Anyone? So domain controller is the one. Okay, let me do one thing. Okay, so the transport domain controller I've told, right? What is the transport domain controller? So it is the one where all the TMS related controlling happens. Okay, so if you want to delete the test system and add a new system, you can do. If you want to change the transport route, you can do. You can want to change anything. You want to change some parameter, you can do. So transport domain controller is the most critical one. So that is where your entire TMS configuration, okay, is defined over there. Okay, so which system you use as a transport domain controller? Is it a development system or quality system or production system? Anyone? Which system can be used as a domain controller? Dev or test or production? Anyone? No? Okay. So see, when I said transport domain controller has all the TMS related control, right? So adding, deletion of the systems and import everything. So then it has to be the high available, okay, and high security precautions and high levels of maintenance. These are the 2 important things it should have. Okay, so then if you take it, production could be the best for the domain controller. Okay. So, but production nobody uses. Production systems always have the high availability and high security precautions and a high level of maintenance. Everything will be there production. But no one uses the production as the domain controller because, it's very risky. Okay, you don't want to do such R&D and then deletion, additions and everything from the production. No, editing also there will be a problem because production you always have to go with the approvals and then the change implementations, and there is too much of complexity to do anything in the production. So to avoid that, and moreover, nobody wants you to touch US or SAP directory frequently until unless you are doing a patching and when there is a change request approved and everybody is agrees. Okay, so you don't want to do these kind of things from the production. So even though your production is a high availability, high security, and a very good system, a suitable candidate for this one, but in general, in any landscape, development system is the domain controller. You can check it. So you log into your development systems in your landscapes wherever you are working. Just execute the transaction code STMS. So then you will find a pop-up that, for example, let me open this system. So let me open this system. Okay, so it is asking my user in this one. I'm logging in. So it's a sandbox system. So that's a sandbox or development system.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
See, here it says, you are logged into an domain controller at the bottom. Can you see? So this is the transport management system. So this is what I'm talking. So this is the EH8 system. And what is the transport domain? It's domain underscore EH8. So it is the naming convention will be like this. So this you can check it in your respective landscape, wherever you know. So, and if you want to know what all systems it has in this thing, just click on systems. So user profile, services, my objects, or you can check the import overview, work list, transport organization, system overview. Yeah, here you can click. For example, in this, it's a single system landscape. I mean, there is no other systems. So if you have a test and production, it will show here EH8 and other system, and then it will also display the role of that particular system. Okay, so or display transport domain. So these things, display things you can do in your this thing also. So this is the domain and short description of this domain, and then management. Let's see, and then workflow engine. Okay, so this is the QA. Workflow engine is like a local domain only. It's an automatic user assignment. So when I was explaining this slide, right, QA approval procedure. Let me go back. Yeah, this one. So configure transport routes. So transport domain controller. You have different transport domain. What you have seen. QA procedure configuration means this is what I was referring to. So wait. Here. So who can approve this transport? Approved by system administration, to be approved by department, or to be approved by the request owner. So these are the three people have to approve if you want to take it to the next system. Okay, they always have to approve. So this you can modify, or the functional guys or developers will update this approval procedure. Okay, so and then go back. So you can do a quick connection display configuration. You can do that. Yeah. So you can see the status system is active. That green light whenever you see the before also. I mean, if we just go back. Yeah. So if it says status active, this one is the active symbol, and then this green. Whenever you have this, which means the system configuration looks good, which means the RFC connections and the mount directory, the trans directory, everything is accessible. Okay. So, or you just click on the display configuration. let me select it. Okay. So you see last changed by, so for example, somebody has changed some program, something in its configuration. You can see who has changed it, SAP start. So which means first time when this system was built on 27th August, whoever has built it, yes. So I was telling you this profile, right? TP domain now profile. So like you have instance profile and the default profile. So each transport configuration has this profile. You can check it in the USR SAP/bin directory. If you go there, you will find, or you can see the directories also here. So this is the domain group and the transport group I was telling, right? This is the group underscore EHP8. Okay. So and then RFC addresses and user is the TMS ADM. It's the standard user for all the TMS related. It will do the. It is the user which they use. So trans directory dir underscore trans. So you don't have to go to the instance directory to see this parameter. So you can see here USR SAP trans is this one. Okay, so TP version is nothing but the TP is the program which will do this transport thing. So it is the 266 version. Okay, yeah. So you have domain underscore EHP, and within that you have a group EH8. As I said, there could be multiple groups for each region: APJ, America, and Europe. So that time you have APJ underscore EH8, AMS underscore EH8, or UR underscore EH8. 3 transport groups. That definitions you can see over there, and then go back. Good. So yeah, you sometimes if you add or delete the system, you can update configuration, but don't do this anyway. So you can simply do the connection test. If you want, you can do that. See, at the bottom it says connection to the system EH8 is okay, which means this is able to communicate to this system. For example, you have a test system and then production system. There also you can just simply check it and do a connection test. If that connection is not working, then there is a problem. I mean, you have to do something. So what RFC connection? So it basically, so you may ask, how does it communicate to the other dev or test system, right? How does it communicate? So the simple thing is RFC connections. Whenever you initialize the TMS configuration for the first time, it creates an RFC connection to the dev test system and then the production system. And that you can see in the SM59. So there, that will take care. The TMS configuration will take care of it. See my screen, right? So these are the TMS ADM EH8 using the domain EH8. So this kind of TMS RFC connections will be defined to those particular target systems, test systems or production system. So this also could be a reason. Sometimes this RFCs doesn't work and there is a problem. Then you have to click here. You can do connection test here also. So it says, yeah. So log on is 51 milliseconds and this is perfectly working fine. Okay. So, okay. In real time, do you modify this TMS, ADM, this RFC connections? Suppose if it is not working, what do you do? Anyone? Yes, am I audible? Please respond.
We need to check the HTTP ports and HTTPS ports in ICM, SIM-ICM.
That is okay. The good. There could be some network breakage and then this connection doesn't work. Okay. So what else you could do? Can you modify these RFC connections?
Yeah, we can do that. Double click on the RFC. The login ID. If it is going through the login ID, we need to check the login ID. ID is logged or not.
User is TMS ADM. Okay. But in general, we don't touch these RFC connections. We can modify. Okay. So, but in general, we should not touch, or even though it is an error, so there will be other ways to troubleshoot it. Okay. I'll tell you why. That's why I asked this question. Like any other RFC connections, right? These above connections, this test 000, T9, these connections you can modify always. Okay. I mean, those are fine. But these connections are automatically created when you do a TMS configuration. You got it? They are the auto-generated HTML, auto-generated RFC connection. So the best would be, yeah, you can try modifying it if it works fine, but the best would be you always delete the existing transport domain transport configuration and redo the configuration. You got it? So it will you again so you delete the transport configuration. That you can do, but you don't do it in any other systems. So STMS. In mostly these things will never fail. I mean, these RFCs. Most of the cases, that issue you may not get it. So most of the times you get issues like data file and co-files do not have authorization, or they are not with SID ADM, and they are corrupted sometimes, because when you copy from other landscape to here, right, they're corrupted. So those things happens. But we generally do not do this. I mean, touch these RFC connections. So never ever try to do something over there. That's why I'm saying. So other RFC connections, fine, you can change something and then you can revert it. But these RFC connections are auto-generated. That's why you have to be a little cautious whenever you're touching this TMS related stuff. Okay. So anything in this TMS is critical, guys. So these transport routes, if you change it, that's it, gone. I mean, one instead of one system, the transports will go to the other landscape and hit the other landscape. Okay, so that is the risk we have when we are working with the transports. I mean, this part TMS, but the display part you can check it in your landscapes also and try to understand what exactly how it is configured in your respective landscape. Okay, so now let's proceed further. Okay, so configuring UP. So this is what I was referring. Who is this? So just now I said, right, RFC communication error with system destination. Okay. So sometimes you may get this kind of errors. That is when you have to check the RFC communication. But I don't think you, this error will be very misleading. Okay. So that's why I ask this question. Whenever this RFC, you get such an error, what do you do? So exactly, you check your SMICM and stuff. Whether the other target systems, test system and the production system, are they accessible? Okay, so if they're accessible, then you have to come and check this RFC if the connection test is fine or not, or if there's any restriction at the port level or something. Or you can see, do a telnet quickly to the port of the target system or a ping to the target systems. Okay, if there is any network breakage, that you have to do. But this is a very generic error. So, I mean, never ever think that, okay, because of this RFC connection, this is failing. Sometimes if you don't have the authorization also, it will give you the same error. Okay. That is why you have to check multiple things when such a thing, when it happens, whether it has the right authorization, these data files and co-files, structure has been defined properly. There is a program, RDD IMPDP or RSTP INST test. Okay. That we will do. That we can do testing thing, so that will verify the configuration. I mean, whether your TMS configuration is, I'll tell you after this. That program RSTP test, that program. 1 second, let me do that. So SC38. Or let's do, okay, this is the back. C38. Okay, I will let you know that program. So there is one program, tomorrow I'll let you know. So that program will tell you that the TMS configuration is completely fine. Yeah, tomorrow while doing the recap, I will execute that and I will show you that. So, I mean, you can't go to the each section and do this, right? Whether my TMS configuration is perfectly or not. Okay, so that is a time consuming. So if you run that program, so it will tell you that exactly where exactly the problem. Okay, if it is authorization missing, it will tell you that authorization is missed, and if it has some RFC connections are not working, it will tell you RFC connection not working, and if the systems are not defined properly, it will tell you the systems are not defined. I'll show you tomorrow. Okay, that report. It's very important, very good report. As a basis guy, you always by heart it. Somehow I forgot this one, or in this system it doesn't exist, so I'll try to import that report to this system. Okay, in general, whenever somebody is building the system, that report will be imported as a post check during after you do a system copy or system build, right? There are post checks, those reports will come automatically, some of the reports. Okay, so now we'll have what all things. Okay, good. Creating the routes, transport routes. So as I said, it's like a traffic signals, these transport routes. So you have dev, quality, and production. So, there is a development route, and then sometimes it's a consolidation route, and then delivery routes. Okay. Let's understand about development routes. Okay. The development is most important. As I told you one example, right? SAP kind of company whose main landscapes are the development landscape. I mean, they have this consolidation and test, but for them, the most critical is the development because they do a lot of changes and product development. So in one system they develop and they want to take it to the other development systems. Okay, then they will develop the this particular development route. Okay, so in that particular route, all the development systems are developed. So one single development system, they do the development, and they will pass those changes to all the development system via a transport route of development route. Okay, and then testing also from all these development systems. So you don't have to have 100 test systems. Define 2-3 test systems, and then you define a route to that. Okay, these are it is like traffic signals, my test system. And then production also, you have a production system, which of them have to be it. So that route has to be defined carefully when the STMS is configured. Then only from so and so system, source and target, through that route will go to the exact systems what you have defined. Okay, by mistake, if you change the route, that's it. The systems will go and deploy in another system, and that will be problematic. Okay, so that is very important. And these routes you can modify, but never ever do that in any landscape. So it's very, very critical. Okay, that will spoil wrong transports will go and they will import in a wrong system. Okay, then again you have to restore and revert the system. So can you assume in SAP? Okay, let me do one thing. So this STMS or the import of the transport can be automated, or is it we have to do manually? Anyone? Okay, you have defined the routes. You have development to other developments, defined delivery route, and then you have a quality route and then production delivery route. So can you automate the import of these transports, or you have to do always manually?
Manually.
Okay. Okay. Let me give you, because these concepts are very important, guys. Try to understand. So you may work on automated also. I have SAP, right? SAP has thousands of development systems. Okay. So thousands of development system, assume daily in those development system, how many transport they create daily. So they will generate a minimum 10,000 to 50,000 transport in a particular day. So there will be around 30,000 developers working on those development systems. 30,000 developers. Assume one guy creates one transport also, so which means 30,000 transports per day. Okay, can you do these things manually? You got it? What I'm trying to ask. So these transport routes are the very, very important, and nobody should mess up with them. So it is like, if you see, if you're working on an SAP project, the TCS, I think TCS is vendor for many SAP projects. So you might have SAP system, development systems access. So you go to a development system and do an STMS, you go crazy. Okay. There will be so many routes defined. That yellow line, green line, red line, blue line, you name any line. So that STMS screen itself is like, you go crazy. So those routes are like veins, like blood supply, right? What we have from the heart. So there will be a central development system where the developers develop, and these all transports will have to go to the multiple development landscapes. Okay. So 30 to 40,000 transports in a day. It is not a small amount. So if you have to do manually, then you have to recruit at least some 5,000 basis guys. So it is not possible to do manually. So they do automatically. Okay, that is where this transport route concept is very critical. Okay, you define the systems. What is my source? What is my target? What is the path this transport have to go? That's it. You establish it, and then you define they write a program in the system that you keep going. So that's it. As soon as they release it, they will come to the. So you can schedule also in STMS. Okay, as soon as you can schedule, and they will schedule the times, and they don't schedule everything at one time because again, it causes latency and the network problems. Okay, your system might have a less number of CPU RAM, and then it will go for a toss. So they will do every 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the transports will be scheduled. So they keep going, keep on going, keep on going. Okay. But if you take, so that's why you have to understand both the things. If you take a customer landscape, okay, where customers like Nestle, BP, or Asian Paints, or whatever is it, you don't have these many number of changes or these many transport. Where the most important thing is, in those cases, controlling of these transports. By any chance or by mistake, also automatically the transport should not go and hit their production. That is what their control is most important. That is when they ask basis guys to import. They don't automate, even though there is a scope for automation, they don't do it. So they want control in every phase. Okay, when a developer gives a transport, they want to control in test system, validate it, and then release it. Then basis guy will go and import it. So they want to have that feel, because anyway there will be some 50 to 100 transport in a quarter. So they don't want to take that risk of automation where there is no control and nobody monitors. Okay. Hope this is clear for you guys now, right? So yes, you can automate the transports and you can schedule them to import, but within SAP, I mean, as a development organization, they have these automated. But when you are working in customer projects, where they always go with this manual thing. Okay. So now you got the glimpse of how important these transport routes. Okay, where their use cases. Okay, so creating routes, so simple. When you click on this, you have consolidation and the delivery route. So it's just that from which system you are taking and what is the transport layer, and the consolidation system to which it has to go. And the delivery system also, source system, delivery system is nothing but a production system. Okay, so you can take this consolidation system as a test system here. Okay, you can assume that. So delivery route is just another import route. The target is the delivery system for the delivery route. It is just a naming convention, guys. I mean, source to the production through this route. I mean, like through this road, it will go. That is what it is trying to say, this explanation. So I just show you one, landscape. I mean, the systems which we have as training purpose is a sandbox system, IDA system. I mean, it's not possible to create multiple. I mean, it's not possible to create a production kind of environment. That's why you don't see too much of this HTMS thing. So I'll give you, I mean, so that for your understanding purpose, one system where multiple things. Okay, I logged into this particular RDQ PI system. You see domain PIS and it's a domain controller. Follow me, guys. Okay, so if I want to see the systems, right, systems overview, see so many systems, all of them are green. Okay, which means all of them are active. So you see system SID is this, and then you see the type TMS system type. You click here, non-ABAP system. It's a Java system. You see here. I guess, can you please acknowledge, guys?
Yeah, we can. Yes, yeah.
So that's why I took one PI, so that you see development and ABAP and non-ABAP also. You get a clear picture. So, and then you put a place here, it's a controller. So which means domain controller. So, and then you see backup domain controller. So in such kind of critical systems, right, where you have an option to create a backup domain controller also, but not many of them do it. So, I mean, in case RDQ or the development system is down, so then the RRQ will act as a domain controller, backup domain controller. It's just that while you are doing a DMS configuration, you just have to tick which system you want to configure as a backup domain controller. You can give another system. So what this guy did is, here, development is the primary domain controller, test system is the backup domain controller, RRQ. Okay, that's how they define. You got it? So, and then this one, it's a virtual system. What do you mean by the virtual systems? Which means these systems are not yet live. So they will come in future. Okay, so they have created the configuration and be ready with everything. So once these systems are ready, they will go and update the instance number and those details in these systems. Let me not touch it. It's a production landscape. So they will update it, and then these virtuals will become the actual systems. Okay, so production systems, they are yet to build. So for now, they have created the virtually. Okay, just understand that aspect. That should be fine for now. So these are the groups. So here, see, he has multiple groups: group A1Q, group ABQ, group RDQ. That's what. So that is fine. Each group has its own trans directory. Okay. So now the another thing is what you have to might be interesting for you is the transport routes. Oh yeah, so this is important for you. Okay, so if you guys understand this one, it is very easy, guys. So development, but don't try change anything anywhere. Just you can see it always. So this is the development, and via this transport route, so they will come to this particular system. Okay, and then 001 client. Okay, from this client to test system. This is a test. Okay, they call it as RTE. Some people will call it as an RTE. I told you, right? Regression testing or QAS. So RRQ is the development, RTQ is the sandbox. It's a 5 system landscape base. So it's very interesting. See this. So now if you understand this, then you will understand 3 system easily. So it's a sandbox. Okay, RDQ. So and then you have this development only. Development. Sorry. Development. So it's a development from development to the RTE system. RRQ is the RTE system. Okay, so delivery route. This is a delivery route, and it comes to the which client? 001 client. They will come, and from RRQ, they will go to the pre-production. You see here, PP means pre-production. Pre-production UR, pre-production AMS. So they have multiple regions. So all go to the 001 client and hit there. Pre-production is 5 system landscape. Sandbox is removed from it, but 4 systems you can see: Dev, RTE, and then pre-production. You see this one, this yellow ones, pre-production. And from this pre-production, it goes to the production through this 001 client. And these are all virtual targets because they have not yet built these systems. Okay, once they built, and they will replace this one. So this is how your transport routes and then the transport layers looks. Okay. And then the other report I was talking, right, where you can check the, if you go to the SC38, so how do you assess that first thing you have to do whenever there is a TMS related issue, run this report, RSTP test. So this report I executed correctly only. In that system, this report doesn't exist over there, but in most of the things, it will execute. So you see here, it will check TP interface. Everything is tick, 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 tick. So it will tell you where exactly the problem is. This is very important. By heart it or you note it down somewhere. RSTP test is the program, SC38. So it will tell you the transport directory is this, logging, everything looks good. And then it will also check the transport profile. So the path of this is this, profile is this, version is this, everything is green. Okay. And then RFC destination. So see, this thing, if you want to check it manually, you assume that at least it takes 2 hours and you may or may not check properly. Okay. Always run this report whenever there is an STMS or TMS related issues. Okay. Please, very, very important report for troubleshooting. Destination, all good. TCP path, good. Executables path, good. Ping, everything good. TP calls, all good. So TP test, TP connect, whatever you are saying that I'm going to check this HTTP, SMICM, all these things. So these destinations and connections works fine, right? So which means everything is fine. You don't have to check anything manually. So this report is very good, and it always has to be green, guys. Okay. So good. So now I have shown you this. Let me disconnect it from here. Very good. So transport process. So it is the first thing in dev system. Developers have to release, and then they export. Whenever they export it, the data file and co-files release. Whenever they release, the data file and co-files creates in the transport directory, and those data files and co-files will be available for all 3 systems via their trans directory. Okay, and then import into the quality assurance, which you can do manually, basis guide, and then quality assurance, the functional leads or the quality people will validate the change, whether it is proper or not. Then they will define into the production. Okay. So one important thing, guys. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware. Can you make these changes to the production as and when you wish, anytime?
Our comprehensive student metrics ensure top-notch learning experiences. We track engagement through attendance, participation, and video interactions. Performance is measured via quiz scores and assignment submissions. We monitor learning behaviors, including time spent and revisit patterns. Our metrics cover social learning, course completion rates, and even post-course success. With technical data on platform usage and device information, we optimize every aspect of your learning journey.
What will be the process? So in your projects, what process you follow? whenever you want to import a transport to the production? Can anybody?
We need to get the approvals first from the approvers.
Who are the
Then only
approvers?
So don't have the idea about that.
No, yes. So see why I'm stressing is sometimes these developers and these test people, right? They will push you. Hey, please go and improve. My lead has approved. My manager has approved. Please go import it into production. That pressure will be there. But
yes,
as a basis consultant, you know the consequences, right? If any wrong TR goes to the system, you have to restore and recover. It's a very bad thing. So in most of the customer projects, guys, there is a change management process. Okay, it is important for you to know this also. Change management process, which means irrespective of whoever approves, manager or not, those approvals are invalid. Okay, I don't know in your project this change management process is there. It will be there. So this change management process means, so these developers or the testers, developers mainly, they will explain about these changes, so and so changes, and these are the implications, and we have tested in the test system. Okay. And then they will give the justification to the change management team. They will approve it. There is an approval team. Okay. CR, change request. So most of the transports, whenever you are importing to the systems, right, there should be a change request. Okay. Have you guys heard of this incident, service request, and change request at least?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for a patch upgrades or patch things and all, you need a change request, right? For an installation or something. So this transport comes into the change category. So never ever do the import of the transport with just an incident or service request. Okay. Please validate the process with your whoever has defined these processes, right, in your projects. So it's better to understand and import rather than in a hurry just import and cause a problem for this. Okay, because these are very, very important. Most of the times these transports goes to the system via change management process. Okay, ensure that you always have an approved change, by the authorized people. Then you validate it and then you import it, so that after that you are just an executor and you will tell that, hey, I have gone through this change management process and then I have imported it as per this so and so approvals. So you are always safe. If you don't follow that and then you just import it and then later people will ask whether have you followed the process or not. So that is very important. So whenever you are importing into the production, you always follow the change management process. Okay, especially for the transports, you have to be a little bit careful. Okay. Now, import and export history. Yeah, in your landscapes, you can simply check it. It's straightforward. So follow the screen, STMS, overview and imports, go to history and export history. What were the transports imported or exported? This data, you can check it in the system. Just for your understanding purpose, these screens have been created. And exploring export in SC01, if you just give the transport number, then it will give you the details of the transport. So it's in a similar way. So who is the person who has imported it and whatever the details of that change. Okay. And then export it operating system. Okay, this is important. Sorry. Okay. So I told you, right, data file always start with the R. Co-file always starts with the K. So either you by heart it or whatever is it, you know this thing. So the moment you see it, you have to identify, okay, it's a co-file. So co-K, just remember like that, I'll do that, co-K. So it starts with K, data file is remaining one is R, so that you don't get confused. So in data directory, these files will be there. In co-file directory, these files will be there. Okay. And then, yeah, it's an STMS tool. Okay, it's simple. So RDT, IMPDP, you don't use it. It's very rare, but no need to do anything over there. So only the SME or experts will try to troubleshoot it after that if there is some issue with that. Okay, just know that there is a program RDT, DMPDP. Whenever there is a program import errors or something, then we execute this particular report. Okay, so yeah, this is just to let you know that there is automation. So there is an option in STMS. You should not do that. We always do it manually, even though majority of the people do manually. But there is a time and date of the import. So we can do that periodically, when and what time we can import it, this thing. Okay. So these are all for your exercise purpose. I mean, how do you import it? Suppose if somebody asks you to import it, you just follow this sections. Okay. So import request and select the request. So I'll explain here. I mean, but because we don't have this transport request to import into the system, but you note this down, this slide number or somewhere. In future, if somebody asks you to import it, you follow this sequence. So here you go there and then import. So you transport number you give here. Okay. And then target system, it's a test system. Suppose if it is a test system. So in this case, it is FT3. And as I said, target client 001 or this one. So start date, immediate. Just see these options, guys. Just try to understand these things. So it's very simple. STMS import, and immediate means if you click on execute, it will immediately execute. And then I said start date, right? Planning you can do at start time, what time you want to start, and planned start and no start after. And sometimes you want to exclude during a peak hours. Okay. For example, APJ system. So morning 6 a.m. to afternoon 2:30 a.m. they will be very busy. So which means you mention this time and apart from that time you import it anyway. So that you can do. So after an event, this is also important. So sometimes these developers will create an events. Okay. So which means after so-and-so code corrections have come to the system, you proceed with importing so-and-so things. Or after completing so-and-so job in the system, you proceed with importing of the system transport. That you can do that. Okay. So, I mean, maybe in certification, these questions may come. So what are the options where you transports can be imported? Immediately you can import at start time, planned start time, and then after an event. So after an event, many people do not know. So just know this as well. But very rarely we use it. Planned start with SAP landscape, they use it, but immediate is the when you are doing it manually. Okay. So screenshots of the import process. Okay. So yes. So here, when we do this, right? So it will give you these statuses. Okay. So right hand side, this legend I'm talking. So green status means request awaiting to be imported, which means you have to click on the import. I mean, these are the statuses you find. Suppose, okay. So let me put a left-hand screen, this one. Is there any zoom option? So you see here, green. Green means this is ready to be imported. Tick mark means, so this screen I am talking, guys. So tick mark means it is successfully imported, successfully imported, successfully imported, this transport. So what is this truck button? Whenever there is a truck button, which means the transport is running. Okay. Whenever something is running, don't bother it. So you always wait for it to complete. Okay. As I told you, these will go and write in the database, and it's very problematic. Okay. So and then what we have. So there are other statuses here. Request must be still approved. Request was rejected. So these kind of symbols. So, and there is a red button here, third button. Request will not be imported. So if you see that thing, which means that it cannot be imported, then you have to inform to this report. I mean, inform to the developer. Workflow control set by default by DMS. So queue controlled mass transports. So this is what something SAP follows. I mean, when they have 10,000, 3,000 transports, 30,000 transports to be go, and then single transports, and one by one we do. Workflow control is set by defaultly set by our STMS. These are the strategies what people will follow. Okay. This one TP program, RSTP test. Okay. Let me ping you in the chat. Or in the discussion, I will do RSTP test. In your landscapes, you can execute this RSTP test. This is the program SC38. Go there and then execute that particular program. So Okay. So I have showed you right in the existing landscape. So it will check many things. So your transport directory and your R3 trans is working fine or not. So your RFC connections working fine or not. And then aware communication. So you don't have to, and your profiles are defined correctly or not. and operating system level, if you have the right permissions or not. So this is a TP program. So what we are doing is RSTP. TP is the program, transport control program, and then we are testing. That is the report. Okay, so that will take care of your entire TMS configurations check. So it's very important. So you will definitely have questions on NetWeaver certification. If you go for it, they will ask you what is the program you use to check for the entire TMS configuration, RSTP test. Okay, or a TP program. You have to transport control program is the program which you use. Okay, and it checks for buffer also. Then release and export calls TPA web. Good. Why change and transport system? Okay, so any questions on ABAP transport space so far before I move to the non-ABAP? Okay, so far what we discussed before I move to the non-ABAP transports. Anybody? Could you please summarize what we have discussed so far?
We have discussed about the transport management and what is the TP transport routes and TDS, transport domain controllers, and how we configure this transport management system and routes and all. And we have discussed about the groups also, like what are the groups, and we discussed about data file co-file, co-files, like what are the, and what are the directories present in USR SAP trans directory.
Very good. So guys, so all of you have followed this. You have covered the majority of the things. Okay, so all of you are comfortable with these terms at least. I mean, where to check, what to check and stuff. So you can build on top of it. All of you. Anyone has any questions on it? Good.
Yes, we are keeping up with it.
Very good. So that's important. See, overview, and then now you got a glimpse of it, then you read anything, you'll understand. You go to Google or help.sap.com or anywhere, then you will connect it. And you go to your systems in your own landscapes, in your projects, open development system. It's not risky also. I mean, you're not logging in production. Go to your development system and see what is your TMS configuration, how it is defined. Can you see those directories, what I've said in OS level? If you have OS level access, okay, open the TP profile, just do some 1 hour of exercise, so that next time when there is an issue with the TMS, then you will be the pakka, you will solve it. I'm damn sure of it. Okay. So so far what we have discussed, okay, are all ABAP related. Okay, transports. So these transports, everything is developed in the ABAP system, and then they were captured in a transport, and that transport is we are taking it to the production. I told you NetWeaver platform, right? So it has a capability for non-ABAP as well, right? And you have Java systems also, Java runtime. Okay, how do you manage? I mean, we don't have any such systems now because we do see very rarely this kind of configuration. But theoretically, I will cover you so that if you find a system, then you get some background of it. Okay, so there is a CTS, change and transport management system. Okay, so SAP has enhanced the existing transport system for the non-ABAP objects. Okay. So non-ABAP objects can be attached to a transport orders. So in portal use case deployment takes place using script learning. So what happens is these non-ABAP transports in a particular order, they will arrange it and then they will give us the files to deploy. Okay. There is a specific deployment option in NWA. So you have to log into the NWA and then we have an option to import those transport those XI objects or JTUE developments. Okay. Or sometimes they will give the deployment files. Okay, so either you use this CTS plus, or we will also do a telnet. The customizations or these deployment files. Okay, I don't know if you heard of telnet. So with that also we can do that. So this change and transport system is CTS is enhanced version of the transport thing, which can enable or which has the capability to import ABAP or non-ABAP J2E development or the XI object transports. Okay, so this is the tricky part. So here you need a Java stack and an ABAP stack if you want. And then here also most of the concepts are similar. You have a domain controller, you have if I find any Java system where this CTS is configured, so if I show you that, then you will understand it. Okay.